Hello, everybody. We are Trekyards. I am Captain Foley,
I'm Chronicles.
and we are here today to do a special presentation for you guys for Fandom Fest. So, welcome to Fandom Fest, and welcome to Trekyards.
Everyone in the room physically, and everyone in the rooms internetally.
Trekyards is a web series. You can find us on YouTube. We do weekly content on all new Star Trek, all Star Trek in general, and specifically on ships and tech. It's kind of our jam. So check us out on YouTube and all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, all that.
We've been going about 8 years now. We've done thousands of videos, and every time there's a new epic Lodex episode with a new ship, a new Tricords, you'll find lots of videos on it. So if you think, oh, I want to know about that ship, we've done it at some point.
And we've been asked to talk about the new ships from the new live action shows here today. And there's quite a few to look at, so we're going to just kind of touch on them. And we have detailed videos on all of these, as well as the ships from Lower Decks and Prodigy. You know, they're nice as well, but we don't have time to cover all those today. And they fall very much in line with visual canon from the past. In general, those shows are really good for that. So check out all of our content on Trekyards if you're curious about any of these ships in more detail.
Yeah, we're sticking to live action today, and starting with Picard Season 1, rather than Discovery or the other shows earlier, because Picard Season 1 kind of started a fresh new movement to the first post-TNG, and you know what the first hero ship be for this post-TNG, and we got the Lesserina, a cargo ship, a maybe but not Federation cargo ship, and at the time it was received mixed. I think the biggest comment from those in the know was it feels like a Mass Effect ship, and certainly was not reminiscent of a Star Trek design. It was quite a radical choice to be the hero ship, really.
Yeah, it was way out of the box. And it also has the Van Halen guitar paint scheme, which didn't help the matter much. But La Serena is a good name. It is a small civilian cargo ship, not necessarily Starfleet, so no glowing nacelles. So none of the standard Starfleet flares, such as glowing blizzards or nacelles, really, that are noticeable. So, yeah.
It's one of those weird things where it was designed with the intention to not look Star Trek, basically. And so, in that respect, it achieved its goal. It's just, as an audience to relate to it, the word generic was used a lot. And even now, I don't think the fan base has taken to it too much. I mean, it's fine, it's nice, but the way it was utilised, the way it was lit, didn't really grab anybody. But that was part of the Season 1 aesthetic of, we'll do different. And that comes across later as well. And the concept art for this ship kind of shows the direction, while in a sense, they knew what they were doing. You can see these designs, none of which look even remotely familiarly hero ship Star Trek. It was a direction from the start, even though I know the original note was, maybe it's a runabout with larger nacelles, but clearly they moved away from that.
But, I mean, we did get a Starfleet-esque ship in Picard with the infamously known copy and paste fleet at the end of Season 1. And that was the Inquiry class.
Yeah, the Jen Hay was brought in. The issue with this ship is obviously it was a last-minute script revision. There was not originally going to be this sort of battle at the end, and so they had to scramble and in 1 week bring the ship to bear, having not had anything designed, not anything built, bring it together, and also create a fleet that was over 100 ships. And universally, this scene is disapproved of by the fan base because it just feels, it feels like the limitations of it. I certainly hope they would remaster it for the Blu-ray, because you would think they would improve it and not let that legacy stand. But the joke being that at the start of Season 2, the new team showed a full fleet of different ships that were better detailed to kind of say, we're sorry for Season 1. And there's a reason for this design, but I mean, you can see it's, my joke for Trekyards is it's missing more features than it has. For the biggest, strongest ship of the class, Stuart, it's missing the registries, the blinkies, the weapon emitters, the torpedoes, the tractor beam emitters, the escape pods, all of the things that a ship should have. It does have nacelles, and they're great nacelles, but for the most advanced ship in the fleet, it misses almost all of the details, and the hull size and window scale makes no sense either. It's an entirely rushed and should never have made screen design.
And the fleet shot is funny because there are a few variants with nacelles and things that they've kind of scattered in there, but yeah, very underwhelming and just all the same ship to occupy the fleet, and it's just a little bit cheap.
Well, it let the fan base down, and they knew that, and then they repaired that in Season 2. But that's a problem of production being changed radically at the end. But that has been a common problem of new Treks, of new modern live action Treks. suddenly, for whatever reason, change course, and then either work has been thrown out or they have to rush other work, and the quality suffers because of it. Now, months later, though, Stuart, Star Trek Online entirely fixed the design by releasing this version, and it looks a ton better.
Yeah, a lot more detail. All the things that were missing that Samuel mentioned are there, because the Star Trek Online guys really know their stuff.
So hopefully, we're sort of, as a fan base, ignore the Season 1 version. Luckily, the Season 2 version, it is featured, and it is this Star Trek Online model, so if they ever got a close-up, this will now be the new canon model. So just like some visual errors in Trek, we just take Season 1's finale as just ignore it. Of course, not the most powerful ship with no weapons. But in that season, we also got the same Commodore O's flagship, the new Romulan big beast of a ship.
And this is post TNG, so it sort of keeps the bird motif, the aesthetic, a little bit of the Romulans, but it's, as you can see, it's got some wing shapes and things like that. Overall, not really shown that well on the show. You don't really get very good shots of it, and you don't get a sense of scale necessarily. So.
Yeah, Picard Season 1, I think the Romulan designs are just uninspired, and you compare them to most of the other ships, honestly, of the Romulan Empire, they're all quite distinct and interesting. There's 3 new designs in Picard Season 1, and they're just, it's just kind of an okay to meh design, and so it doesn't give us the epic Romulan flagship vibe. It's fine. But what wasn't just fine, kind of excelled, is the antique Romulan bird of prey, which was then reused in Strange New Worlds very, very recently.
Yeah, this one is one of my favorites, actually, just because it does maintain that original TOS Romulan bird of prey aesthetic, and yet upgraded. At the time, we said it felt very much like a movie-era version of it, like a refitted version, and it is a nice-looking ship, I gotta say. The bird on the bottom looks beautiful. It's the TOS ship with added detail and new nacelles, and the new nacelles work very well. Like, this is a home run, hit it out of the park kind of design, and again, very thankful for this one.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's the kind of the first new Trek's take, as in the Outskirts from brand of Discovery, Picard, Stranger Worlds, where they actually faithfully took an old design and modernized it, sort of as the fan base would majoritarily ask for, versus let's do it our way and kind of take away what made it great originally. At least in some occasions. And it's funny, even this render from Eagle Moss, you can see how low the detail of the ship actually is. It's still very basic, but the way it's used on screen and in Stranger Worlds, it just feels a lot better. It just works as a better design. Those classic designs that last for 60 years almost, they're classic for a reason. And this one utilised that and did a really good job. But speaking of then, the Discovery Enterprise, which we call it, although now it's taken a life of its own in Stranger Worlds, was introduced at the end of Discovery Season 1 as a last-minute also-change of edition to kind of grab the fan base. In Season 2, it was then seen a little bit, a lot of the battle, but it was fully designed by Scott Schneider and John Eaves to be a war refit, said Eagle Moss's books, or a visual reboot, says maybe, or an earlier version. It's confusing, because it's kind of none of them, but also all of them at the same time, as are the confusion of Strange New Worlds.
Well, the reason it is confusing is they're trying to fit new aesthetics into the prime timeline and make them make sense, and it doesn't quite work. So,
while also upscaling for no reason, which then breaks all the other scales, all the other ships, etc.
They're trying to do their own thing and at the same time maintain that prime timeline statement that they say that it is. It's a fine looking ship. It's a great looking ship. John Eaves did a great design, but compared to the original one, there's a few problems with it, mainly those slanted or swept back struts and the shorter, more squat look. If you look at it from the front or the side, you can see it's quite a bit more squat than the original one. Even the neck is much subdued. Even though it looks really nice and it would have been a great visual reboot for 2009 Star Trek, it just doesn't quite work in the way that they're using it.
Yeah, in motion it works best, and Stranger Worlds, which has a very small details, most just rim sources, it works really well in motion. But as soon as you start actually doing renders comparing the front or the side view, it's just been sort of mangled a little bit proportion-wise. The original Connie, the saucer is so elegant and smooth and nice and rightly sized, but you can already see from this licensed game model that the scaling of the windows and the decks doesn't all quite work. This is not to scale, but even if it was to scale, that it wouldn't work. So it all kind of fudged. It was designed to be the original size, the Enterprise, but then they were told the Discovery is so much bigger that it would look silly compared to Discovery, which was a ginormous ship. So they had to then upscale it, which then breaks all window scale, which then breaks all the other scales. So it's a ship of kind of we have to, and therefore certain things just don't work. And aesthetically, it just doesn't really fit And to think they would have to, in canon, take the Cage Enterprise, which is the original series Enterprise, refit into this version, and refit back into the Enterprise we see in TOS, is a bit of an odd idea, but that's the canon they're presenting us. And here's an interesting shot showing that, yes, in the audience's mind, you may look at both Enterprise and say they're the same, but this is a great comparison of and it's not to scale, but conceptually to scale, how none of the shapes are the same. Not a single one matches. Everything has been reproportioned. But it tricks you into thinking it's the same, but it really, really isn't. It's an interesting optical illusion that way.
Yeah, and I want to point out here too as well that we've done multiple ship comparisons of these two ships. We've done a lot of videos on these, so go to the channel and check them out. But this is actually the original concept version that John Hughes created with straight struts, so that it could match and actually become what we see in TOS. And that was signed off on and approved, and then the visual effects team actually changed it after it was approved to give them the swept back struts, which is more in line with the refit.
And also a different hull texturing, which was way more grungy. And this is stuff that John only saw when it was revealed on screen. And here, in fact, is John's original concept. It already feels like for me, as my brain, this looks to me like an NX era. If I was to see this out of the blue, because the colour scheme kind of works, the nacelles feel very familiar, and the struts and the slit. But for some reason it was changed so much that it just kind of feels like its own beast. While nice just is its own thing. It does not connect to either the refit or the classic in terms of aesthetic. You can't. There's a line that's drawn and it does kind of this.
Another thing I want to point out too is on Trekyards we do talk to the designers. We do interviews with them, and we do talk to them on a regular basis. John designed this with those straight struts, as you can see, with that slit, so that at some point, technologically wise, at that slit from their back would be taken out, and therefore become the TOS Enterprise that we see Kirk in command of. And you can see that the struts are the same pretty much, if that was the case, and that would have been much preferable. So I got a real problem with the swept back struts. Yes, they look cool. Yes, they look sleek. It looks fast while it's sitting still, but the straight struts are the aesthetic for the time period. Right. So again, we go into a lot of detail in other videos, and we do talk to the designers as well. So if you're interested in that, check that out.
Yeah, and we've been looking at tech and designs for 8 years, along with our own personal love of the ship design. So for us, Star Trek is a historical piece. It shouldn't be and can't really be just taken and said, well, we're going to throw away these designs and say, maybe they've been loved for 50 years by potentially billions of people, especially over the course of humanity. We're going to throw them away and just start again. It's a huge disrespect to Matt Jeffries, especially, and the entire production team to say we're just going to throw it away because it's a historical. You can do updates and modernizations, but you shouldn't just throw away. But what it hasn't been thrown away, Stuart, is the shuttle, which is very interesting for Stranger Worlds. This is where they really have started to push back towards we actually want to respect rather than redesign. And while it is a redesign, it kind of toes that line more. And this is a concept art, but it's a much nicer looking shuttle. It's clearly not the true Galileo. It's an earlier version.
But if I take my glasses off and squint real hard, it does look like the original one. So they got the spirit, the sense of it there. And I think Strange New Worlds did a lot to course correct and try to make things feel a lot better than they did in Discovery. So got to give them credit for that. But as far as the design goes, we've seen this on screen multiple times in Strange New Worlds, and in motion, this thing looks great. I think it looks a little different from the concept art here, what we actually see on screen, but very true to the original aesthetic, and it's a good reimagined look. So kudos to them for that.
Yeah, Strange New Worlds, for the most part, says we aren't TOS, we're not going to be TOS, we don't link to TOS design-wise, we're never going to be TOS, but we are still TOS-esque Star Trek. There's Discovery, which is we are not TOS
inspired.
Yes. At least try and give us a bit of that. The phaser example, communicator example, I mean, absolutely gorgeous. For Discovery, which kind of moved past. But speaking of Discovery, though, the first season version, again, one of the most controversial ships in Star Trek, with a insane sense of proportion, insane scale, weird design cues, both inside, outside, and texturally. This thing was used for several years, but it was a leftover from what Brian Fuller wanted, who was the showrunner who was pushed out even before episode 3 was in production. So he was instrumental in creating the look, and then thrown out, as it were, to actually make the show. But the entire team was left with all of the money spent on all the designs. And Discovery herself took like 9 months to produce because they kept going back and forth. And other designs were far better. What we got was a weird piece. It was, however, refitted in season 3, and we did several videos on it, and we just said, that's great, that's beautiful. Such small yet huge differences, but boy, it just works a ton better.
And we've said this since the beginning. If Discovery had just originally been, set in the future as opposed to pre-TOS, we would have thought the show was a lot better. The designs would have felt more at home. They would have felt an evolution. Brian Fuller's, he wanted no cylindrical nacelles. He didn't want anything to look like TOS, and his fingerprints, his DNA is all over the show from the beginning. And as Samuel said, they were stuck with those designs, even to the point where he likes Halloween. Brian Fuller likes Halloween, so the registry of the Discovery is NCC 1031, October 31st. Things like that. And once he left the show, they had all this stuff made, so they had to work with it. And yes, they've made great strides to improve over the course of the
season. Stuart, they get rid of more and more of his stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, to be the 32nd century Discovery now, the refit, the A, with the detached nacelles, and just things changed on the ship. It's a much better looking ship in general, and yeah, they just should have just started there, in my opinion. But hey, that's...
Yeah, aesthetics are purely up to each person, but yeah, the fact we both agree this is just a infinitely better design in pretty much every single way. Well done them for redesigning, and it's actually nice to see this on the screen. Not to mention they actually have nicer beauties now. Still not compared to Voyager or DS9 or Enterprise. Those are much nicer special effects into the space work in terms of the ship shots. But at least they're sort of moving in that direction, and hopefully season 5. Yeah, hopefully season 5 will give more. But speaking of more, season 3 we did get the entire 32nd century fleet, which again is a bit of a controversial design choice. They had to go radical, and they went radical.
Yeah, a lot of familiar shapes here: staplers, Millennium Falcons, things like that.
Ori ring ships.
Yeah, most with detached nacelles, futuristic designs, and that's fine. It's 900 years in the future. There's a lot that can happen with the Federation, new planets coming in, but.
Yeah, the fan base is sort of divided on this. We personally understand the idea of the tech so futuristic, it's futuristic, detached. It doesn't feel practical at all, like logically practical, but it's the mega future. You can allowed to. But this is a hugely diverse fleet. 9 out of 10 of these ships, however many, you wouldn't class as Star Trek. You just wouldn't even think. But they could, in the logic, be, an Andorian's 57th granddad's second child via third marriage to a Tholian's inspiration based on a old Prothean design. Oh, that's math. It could be anything, so it all kind of works better. But there's at least some nice things, a couple of these ships, and we hope to see them more in season 5, utilised more. They were a bit in season 4, underused, but they do exist to use more. So then going from kind of all over the place and weird to Picard season 2, where they gave us some kind of faint hope at the start and kind of altered it as the season went on. But it started with spaceships, ended with spaceships, and we got the Stargazer, the bring back original designers and also new people like Thomas Maroney and some Star Trek Online people to kind of design a properly new post-TNG hero ship. And how's the reaction to this one, Stuart?
This is the new Stargazer, and yes, to see this immediately in Season 2 of Picard was a huge step forward, relying on those old designers, those old looks, and making it feel post-Star Trek Nemesis, new technology, new design, was really great. Everything about it worked, more or less. We have a few foibles here and there, which, again, we have videos you can go check out on that. But that original establishing fleet shot in Picard, you get Star Trek Online ships sprinkled in, and it's very much... Here, we're sorry for the fleet in season 1. This is our Star Trek now, and it was nice to see. I just wish we would have seen more of it in season 2. Like the first episode, the last episode, are really kind of fun and feel Star Trek. The filler in between is not so much. But yes, back to the original post-Nemesis style aesthetic.
Yeah, this was almost universally appreciated by the fans. They even had actual beauties that kind of allow you to see and appreciate the ship. And this is a beautiful fan mod by Mark Bell, who took publicly available orthos. The team they showed the fans what it looked like, and so much so that a fan version we recreated so beautifully, and fans even got to see even more of it. And we look forward to seeing more of it in season 3. It'll do We Don't Know What, as well as other teased ships, and given this as a baseline. And one of the key things being, unlike the Zhenhe, it actually has the elements that it needs to have. You can see the RCS thrusters, you can see the pinstripe, you can see I guess they're back, the impulse domes. That's okay, that's fine. The phaser strips, transport emitters, the things that are literally basic 101 stuff finally returned. And it is a checklist of things. But the fact that every single show up until this point, except Lodex and Prodigy, which are unique beasts and do try really, really hard, every other ship has not achieved the simple checklist. So we hope that Picard Season 3 is going to be a symbol of doing it right. Season 2 had peaks and troughs. Season 3 we have a lot of hope for, and people know that we love ships as the audience. We've gravitated towards the ship designs for 50 years. I mean, the Enterprise was a masterclass, a beast when it came out from Matt Jeffries and the team back in the day, and Trek has continued to present amazing designs that have been iconic shapes and statues of wow to the universe for so long. That'd be nice to get a bit more of that in modern Trek.
I think that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching this presentation and for maybe checking out Trekyards. We're on, like I said, we're on YouTube. We are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that. So check us out. Trekyards, all one word. And we do put out weekly content, and we do love our ships, and we do love our Star Trek. So go check us out, subscribe, and become part of the Trekyards community. We'd really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank Fandom Fest for inviting us to do this, and really appreciate the recognition. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, we've done this for a while now, and if you know us, hey guys, if you don't, like I said, if you enjoy ships and tech, we have an extremely high back catalogue of things from all the years with new renders, new comparison charts, things from all breadth, concept art from ships, concept art from shows that never got used, game ships. It is huge. Go back and look. And yes, thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure to chat to you all today.
So until next time, he is Commander Cockings.
And he is Captain Foley.
And we'll see you guys later.
Bye guys.